Hello, everyone. We are the three Black Pratt grads. I'm here. My name is Mark Skinner. I'm here with my good friends Kenneth Nelson and Greg Cleghorn. Uh, Before we begin, I just want to say one thing. I have to say thank you. Actually, two things. Thank you, Ken, for inspiration for a photograph that I did yesterday. There's a photograph that Ken showed of kids on a snow covered hill a couple of weeks ago, and it just embedded itself in my brain. And I saw a scene yesterday in the sun that reminded me of that. And I was going to photograph this, and I said, no, yes, no. And then finally I said, you know what, I'm going to take this photo when I saw these great gestures, and then talk about it later. So thank you, Ken, for the inspiration for putting a similar scene in my head so that I could recognize a really great photo that I otherwise would not have taken without.
Is it a picture referring to today's topic?
It has nothing to do with today, except for I took the photo yesterday. And the second thing I want to say before we begin, last week, Leica and Lumix, that's the camera division of Panasonic, they created the L2 Technology Alliance. And I just got to say that there's a photographer I knew in New Jersey. Her website is padmasworld.com. She photographs flowers and architecture and all sorts of great stuff. And she'll even teach you. You can buy her prints on her website. And what's really interesting is many, many years ago, she asked me, she said, what do you think of Panasonic for a camera when she was looking for cameras? And I said, you know, they may or may not make great cameras, but people don't associate Panasonic with great cameras. Well, if Leica is associating them with great cameras, and they are co-branding new technology together. And they've done this before, but this seems a little special because it's just them. It's not the alliance with several companies. It's just the two of them, Lumix and Leica squared. I got to say that, you know, to a certain extent, we were both right, but I just wanted to say you weren't as wrong as I said you were when you were talking to me about that brand. Anyway, let's get back to our topic. Today's topic is more, please. Okay. Now, I wanted you guys to, and myself, to think of the term more, please, in terms of photography. Now, in all honesty, you know, more photographic projects, more work is a given. So I don't really kind of want to say, well, I want more work. Okay, next person. I wanted to say, you know, how would you apply the term more, please, to your photography? And would you apply it in terms of the subject matter? Would you apply it to some treatment? Would you apply it to any other thing other than I just want more work? Because I think that's something we all want in this group. So Kenneth is up next. Actually, he's up first. And let's talk about what more please means to you.
Okay, so I will preface this by saying I had no clue how to approach this up until about 5 minutes before we were supposed to do this. And so I had to rely on good old brain, those neurons in the head, to sort of spark an idea. And so what I decided to do was what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks, which was going back into my archive and basically working and seeing things like this. So more please to me, more please to me means seeing more within the frame, bringing more into visual aspect. And this is something I've always thought about in terms of the panoramic format. And even when it was had its real heyday, maybe in the late 90s and early 2000s, a lot of people were testing it out and sort of became a fad. And even there were a couple of cameras that were very dedicated to the panoramic format. And I was working with the camera store for a couple of years, and they would allow you to take a camera out. And so I decided to take the swing lens camera out as a street shooter. And lo and behold, found myself in Harlem and found this ability to do a 100 and maybe even a 230-degree panorama by stitching two 146-degree panoramic images together. And it was just, I think, in lately, the past couple of weeks, I've just been going back to the images in my archive and reviewing some of those panoramic images, and this just falls into line with it. More images, more things to say within a frame, because it's a panoramic format, and it gives you the opportunity to go from left to right, right to left, and just sort of meander through and look through. So that's 5 minutes, with 5 minutes of just, I think, what do we call it when you cram? Yeah, I crammed for 5 minutes before the test. And this
Well,
is great.
I think it's a fantastic selection, and I think it's a really great use of the two images that you've stitched together. It certainly it deserves to be a mural somewhere so that people can really enjoy all that is within that very wonderful historical image that you've created.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's just amazing. I'm in love with this thing. And just one more to sort of solidify it, and another panoramic. This one's not, it's just one. But nonetheless, I still, and this is another panoramic, of course, seeing more of the landscape and everything. I've gone out to California, I think twice in the last couple of decades, and the landscape is just so beautiful. But I took the panoramic camera out, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I really haven't looked at these images since I photographed them, and it's only now that I've actually looking at them and actually really marveling at their ability to amaze me. You know, even though I know I photographed them, they're still amazing to me.
What about it amazes you?
The landscape, the quality of the imagery, uh, yeah, the landscape. This is just one, and this is actually one of the maybe least impressive, and the only reason why I picked this one is because I'm in it.
Oh, is that your shadow there?
That's my shadow. I don't
Looks
remember
like
if it was
somebody holding their
sunrise.
arms out.
I don't remember if it was sunrise or sunset, but I think it was sunset. But still, I just enjoyed the trip, and I enjoyed the ability to include more detail instead of the typical square frame or the typical rectangular frame, to use the panoramic frame, the cinematic frame. So that's my more please, and I'm looking forward to actually doing more.
I like this darkness between the cityscape and then this open landscape, but there's like zip, but shrub grass and tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
It's the stark difference between the two. There's probably more critters in that picture. Yeah, the cityscape and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very different approach, but yeah, that's all I got.
All right, so Greg, what do you, what is more, please?
What is
Photograph
more
mean to you?
For me, more please when you said that. Well, of course, the first thing was, like you said, no, that we can't do that. More work, more, whatever. But I looked through some of my work, and of course, I'm doing some traveling now for myself. And when you said more, please, I don't know. I just kept thinking of I don't know, Lee Friedlander, Robert Frank, photographers, the old school guys who played with depth in their photographs. Not necessarily, F16, but they photograph through windows so they get the reflection behind and the, what's inside the images. And just, like Kenny was saying, the more that you look at a photograph like that in both of them, the more you see. It makes you want to kind of explore the image, and you kind of, the more you get drawn in, and you look at, there's that guy on that corner that's been there for the last 10 years. There's that tumbleweed. I remember it when it was just breaking the surface. That's one of the strengths of photography, that it can both be a creative medium and a documentary medium. So when I heard you say more, please, when I came up with this, you can put the first one up, Ken. Um, this was just, not just spring rain. I was enjoying the sun coming through the trees. And then it was actually because I'm also, I have like a little vegetable garden growing. So I sprayed the water up into the air, and it brought out the streams of light even more. They were there, but I couldn't see them. It's like when you're on a movie set, they say dirty up the air with the smoke machine, so that you can see those streaks of light. It makes it more dramatic. So when you add more to an image, you usually get more. Especially, I won't say especially in photography, but in photography, if you creatively add to it, it brings out things that you didn't see before, and it makes for a cool image. In my opinion. Okay, go to the next one, Ken. This is a similar thing where I was just walking around the body of water, kind of on my morning walk thing, and it's kind of interesting the way you see. You can't look into the sun, but you can look into the clouds, and sometimes if you look at the reflection, you can see the reflection in the clouds. So you're seeing a whole bunch of different stuff at different levels. And then that what is that, the pareidolia, where you make shapes in the clouds into, I don't know, rabbits or horses or whatever. I was having some of that going on in the clouds, but with the ripple of the water, it kind of brought the clouds, you know, clouds to life, without smoking a doob, which was kind of a good thing. So go ahead, go to the next one before I was thinking that one. Good. And I kind of people are always interesting to me, and I was wondering how golden that sleep was. Things. If you look, that old Earth, Wind, and Fire. As I look for the signs that lead in the right direction. Yeah, and sometimes I see that in imagery, and I have to get it. I'm like, ooh, those ooh moments. I live for those ooh moments. That's for me. An ooh moment is like a more moment where you're like, it's like you get excited about seeing something, then you hope it stays there long enough for you to capture it.
Mm-hmm.
That for me, that's more. I want more of those ooh moments. And a nice, easy sleep. She's got her cool beverages in front of her, and it's a golden moment. Good. Go to the next one, the last one. But then you have the moment, but then also, you add a layer of depth to it, and it becomes a completely different image. It's no longer, wow, is she drunk and unconscious, or it becomes, this like, I won't say panoramic like yours can, but it changes the thing. She's resting, her feet are up, and the space behind it is just, for me, it adds more to the image, it adds more to the composition. And for me, I don't know, I don't know which one is a better image, but I like the pullback where it's not about person or necessarily the subject. And the subject can be almost anything, but she's dominant. I have to say that. So a relaxing or reclining person, the big window, for me, this is more. Okay, that's all I got.
I can say the first image that you have with the sun peeking through the clouds is as terrifying as it is beautiful. Okay, this one for me.
That one?
Yeah, it is as terrifying as it is beautiful. I think it.
Why?
It looks like the sun hurtling through space toward us, or it also looks like the sun peeking through a canopy of trees, of leaves. I mean, there's just a lot to go into with that in terms of, you know, what you can imagine. It's not a lot to say, but there's a lot to emotionally go through when you look at that within a short amount of time. I'd say the second image doesn't hold the same type of energy for me. It doesn't seem as special. And the next photograph with the
Wait! You don't see the faces in the clouds? There's some creepy faces if you look, but you don't have to.
Well, I think for me is that I think it's requiring more of me than in this format as a viewer I can ingest properly. And then if you go to the next photograph, as wonderful as a photograph this is, purely removed from any ethical decisions, I would say it's perfectly exposed, it's perfectly composed, it's a beautiful print. Everything is right, the composition, the information between the sleeping figure. I'm presuming this person's sleeping. If it's not set up, this is a natural photograph, I'm presuming.
That was as is.
Okay. If they're sleeping and there is that bottle, I'm presuming that, you know, there are assumptions that one makes when they look at a photograph like this. They're either relaxing, you know, before their beverage, or just a little bit after their beverage, or while they're having their beverage. But I'm not crazy about taking photographs of sleeping individuals. That's just not me. The last one is a little bit more conventional in terms of it shows why this person would be sleeping, and the focus isn't so much on the content of the items on the table. It really just shows that this person's in a compartment. I'm presuming it's a train, and they've got a lot of traveling to do. So, you know, they have a beverage and they're sleeping, and there's enough space on the train for them to occupy 4 seats on their own, and that tells a bigger story with more compassion to me than the other one.
Okay.
But you know, photographically, I think they're all pretty neat.
Neat.
I don't. I just. Yeah, neat.
Okay, neat.
That's just. I love it. I use. Don't you love it? I use slang that's older than me. So.
Neat. Okay. Where did we lose Ken? You there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was just I really didn't have a comment on anything except maybe the first one, which, of course, in terms of more please, the only thing I thought about when I saw this was, and again, as Mark was talking, I started to think about just the longevity of or more please, and of course you've photographed. It's an image we're assuming is the sun peeking through trees above. And so I begin to think about the life of the sun in itself, and the fact that it's halfway through its life cycle, and that in about 4.5 to 5 billion years, it will, you know, it'll be something different. And so more please means just more time to enjoy the sun for the next maybe 5 billion years, if of course you live that long, of course. So
I don't think I would want to live 5 billion years.
Right. And I think that might be one of the reasons. That's probably one of the reasons why those two photographs at the end didn't really sit well with me so much. For more, please. The second to last one with the close up of the sleeper and the beverage, that really looks like, well, if they have more of that, they're going to sleep. You know, gets the message across, or a message across, but it's just not my style.
I was on, for me, the more pleased for when you're putting these two together, it just means more information to tell the story.
Yes.
So, you know, and instead of, you know, you could tell a story with one, but you could tell a more comprehensive story with two.
Yeah.
This tells more of a comprehensive story?
I think when you put the two together, they do. Individually on their own, I don't think they tell as good as a story as they do when you put them side by side. It's almost like you know, you're zooming out of a close up, you know, You close up, then you zoom out, then you get the environment. You understand what the environment is, and then you realize what the story's about, or what the actual pullout is about, what the environment they're in.
The reveal.
Yeah, I
The
think
reveal.
you have a really good idea. Sorry, Ken. You ever think you have a really good idea there? And I think it would be even better if at least one of those two images, the pose was slightly different, so that you could get a sense that they moved and they're still sleeping. So you get the sense of a transition of time between the two images, rather than, I stepped further closely. I stepped close, took a photo, and then I pulled back and took a photo of the same thing. Isn't as complex the story as they moved, and I got a little bit more detail. But this is the overall scene.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if I was posing it, yeah, I could see, bringing the time element in there, but it's not posed, and I don't know. I just kind of get a good feeling about capturing things the way they are. I mean, if it's a person sleeping, I don't have a problem with, because that's kind of like part of the human condition. So I don't think that I'm invading or whatever other concern that you have against photographing people, in this type of a situation. But I don't have a problem with it, because I've been dog tired and passed out, and that's kind of just, like I said, a part of the human condition. So um, I don't know. That's what I got. It's like the landscape too. I mean, you have, like, because there are no people in the landscape, you don't feel like you're intruding on the landscape's privacy.
No, it's really about the idea that if you're sleeping on a plane or a train or an interstate bus, that there's a certain level of privacy that you have in that sort of sphere of influence that you have sitting in your seat, and you want to feel it feels it gives me discomfort to see such a close photograph of a woman sleeping. Was she aware of the photo when she awakened, or
Why would she be? She didn't need to be awake for it.
see that's where you and I are going to have to agree.
Okay, so are you opposed to Kenny shooting people on the subway and they're unawares? They never see their image afterwards. They weren't asked to have their picture taken. Are Kenny's images challenging for you?
Some are, and I don't really feel that that's the same arena that I would work in also on a regular basis.
Yeah, Mark's made his case known for that. I mean, I understand it.
Hold on, I had a plane go over. What was that?
For me,
Yes, sir.
yeah, Mark's made his case about how he feels about photographing people, and I understand, and I know that there's certain levels of comfort that many people have with just being around people and photographing other people, and so even I have my comfort
Do's
zones,
and
which I
don'ts.
don't
Yeah.
do. You're right. Like
Okay.
like for instance, I don't photograph homeless people. Right. So that's the level of comfort that I choose not to cross.
Okay.
Okay. But other people, to me, if I can identify them as being not homeless, or I will choose to photograph them if the situation within my sight desires it.
But that ain't for me. That kind of reemphasizes and exacerbates their invisibleness. I mean, I don't remember that photographer's name. He did Humans of New York,
Mm-hmm.
and did nothing but homeless people, and was well received for it. It's like, yeah, everybody has a story. Theirs just happens to be in a condition that nobody wants to find themselves.
Right. And to your point, he does make a point to approach the people, get their story, and combine their story with the images he takes of them. And so in that way, that still is very much in line with the type of ethic I'm talking about. If you had a story to go along with this woman's photograph, to say, well, I talked to her and she was on her way from Fresno to Sacramento, and she was tired, and you had a big story, it would be much more engaging. And she was accepting of that particular intimate time in her life. I mean, let's face it, when you're asleep, you're unaware of what's going on around you, and you trust, particularly on a flight or a commuter train, or train, not even an interstate train or an Amtrak type train, that you're not going to just have someone create an image of you in that way. I think people accept the subway as a place where kind of almost anything happens. And if you've been here in New York, you know that people photograph on the subways. And so it's a different experience. I know if I buy an Amtrak ticket and I'm going to go to North Carolina from New York, I don't necessarily want to see anyone when I awaken from my sleep taking a photograph of me, somewhere around Georgia or Louisiana. You know what I mean? Excuse me. Wouldn't go
So
that
it's the awareness that bothers you?
Georgia, for Virginia, I don't have to go to Georgia. But between Maryland and Virginia, I don't want someone to take a photograph of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're getting off track here because we're getting way off the. Maybe we'll pick this up at this particular
Like
ethics.
I said, those are each wonderful photographs. Other than my personal sensibility about what's right to photograph, I think they're well done. I think you've made your point. You've gotten your story, and I think more pleases the idea that you have you've gone and got more information for that story, and I think that's valid.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving right along.
Yeah, moving on. All right. So I have one diptych to show, and that is a photograph. Now, we always talk about the fact that I, as a photographer, tend to like to photograph with lights. I don't like to use retouching to make my point. I actually went out into the field with a tripod and a camera, and it's a Hasselblad camera that does the X-Pan digitally as part of its architecture. And so this was shot as a panoramic. It wasn't shot the full sensor width and whatever and cropped.
Okay.
But what I did was I took this image in the rain. It's a weather sealed unit, and I just stood out there with a raincoat and felt very proud of myself that I was doing this sort of the street photography in a very old fashion, in the rain, with a camera and a cable release and all the things that go along with that. And when I got this photograph, I was on the corner of Pearl and William, South William, in Manhattan, and I photographed this corner that has the famous, now closed restaurant, Delmonico's. To me, if you look at the Delmonico's building, it looks a lot like how Gringotts is depicted in the Harry Potter series. But I wanted to
Gringotts.
more, please. I looked at the original image, and it's good, but I felt that the do not enter signs said more than what I wanted to say. It says, do not enter this path, these roads. And that really wasn't the message I wanted. And simultaneously, as I've been doing this is about 3 weeks ago, I've been kind of reviewing W. Eugene Smith's work, and particularly, I watched the movie, The Minamata, and I've really kind of gotten into what he was doing, because he always shot in black and white, didn't shoot in color, and all of his work was very dramatic, but he was dramatic before digital retouching. And so a lot of what he did was burning and dodging in the darkroom. And so I used my software to do the burning and dodging, very minimalistic things, that everyone would have done in a darkroom to kind of get my message across. And so what I did was I kind of opened up the doorways and say, I wanted to add more to this image. I wanted to show what I was seeing. I saw the person with the umbrella, which is always good for replicating in the hearts of photographers iconic you know, photographic reference, right? We all know the famous photographs with umbrellas, rain and umbrellas. That's photography these days, right? Particularly, actually, that's photography in the mid 20th century. And then you burn and dodge. And so I wanted to show these this huge SUV, very a very expensive, elegant automobile that the people who would eat at that restaurant, the type of SUV that they would drive or ride in when they ate there. And so the message of the photograph was a little bit more evident in the bottom photo. That's really what I saw when I photographed it, but I wanted to show you the difference. And so what I did was when I saw my original, I said, myself, more please. I want more. I wish I had lights. I wish I was able to put a huge spotlight on the doorway. I wish I was able to kind of block out all the sun that was in that alley in the left side. I wish I had something just to make the umbrella pop and the figure, get the rain a little bit more contrasty, and that's really it. So that's really kind of a thank you to Greg too, because we always have these offline conversations about retouching and the validity of digital retouching. So you've caused me to think a lot about incorporating some of that in the type of work I do, because as you know, most of what I do doesn't really include this type of manipulation. It really is just sort of a little bit of brush up on someone's face, maybe to get blemishes, and that's really about it. So this is fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Photo illustration is life. But thanks for the reference, but I won't say a lot of your photographs, but a fair number of your photographs would just pop even more, to me, in my opinion, for what that's worth, if you did more stuff like this. I mean, this, from the top to the bottom, you made it like a regular old snapshot to a movie set. That bottom image, like you were saying, whoever that was in Harry Potter, but Harry Potter's, their cinematography has been amazing, consistently amazing. Their lighting is very theatrical, and I don't know if you did or not, but the color shift between the warm image on top and the cool in the doorway is really. I'm sorry?
No, just contrast, burning and dodging, nothing else.
Okay, but it looks a cooler blue to me. So I'm saying that really works with it, and it's very it's very cinematic, and it has a completely different feel than the one on top is just a regular ho-hum day in New York. Oh, Delmonico. The bottom has some meat to it, meat and potatoes with gravy. It's got it's like it looks the part of a sinister, possibly a mob place, possibly, something, something's going to happen there. And it's Delmonico's, something's about to go down.
Yeah.
So I like
I thought
what you did with the bottom.
Wheeler sort of thing, not necessarily.
What?
I thought it was just sort of like, wheelers and dealers, that sort of a, old 80s Wall Street kind of idea with much more contemporary automobile.
I think there's the I don't know if it's called, it's not that. I'm just trying to find the specific word for it, where you're saying you're being given more with less information. There's absolutely less information there in the second frame, but yet you're considering it more. It's not an oxymoron, but it's maybe a quandary, a cliffhanger, or whatever you want to call it, to the point where you're blocking out information, but yet you're telling us you're giving us more, when in fact it doesn't necessarily correlate. It doesn't relate. More information means more things in the frame, not more things taken out. But here it's the exact opposite.
Well, I don't think this photograph would work with a different facade, because if you take a look at it, the grill work of this particular automobile is reminiscent of the doorway of this particular restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And even the, you know, the headlights are very much reminiscent of the lamps that are in this hundreds of years old restaurant. So you can see that the idea that this particular car represents money and old money is very much reflected in the architecture. The architecture and the automobiles in this particular part of Manhattan, they all, you know, ooze the same sensibility.
You should have got a Maserati. If you were, you know, if you were shooting it as something you could adjust and set up, you know, Italian Maserati, you know, American Cadillac, it's okay, but you know, they say less is more, right? Sometimes when you take out stuff, you know, simplicity is so beautiful, and the way the taking out the depth of the alley, I should, like you said, you wish you could have made it darker, you know, come back at dusk or something. But man, that the one on the bottom is just so cinematic. It looks like a movie frame, you know. I really like the bottom one.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
Okay, guys.
All right.
Time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. We have been, and we will continue to be, 3 Black Pratt grads. I'm here with my friends Kenneth Nelson and Greg Cleghorn, and I am Mark Skinner. Have a good night.